Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Unqualified podcast, the podcast where two lifelong fans try to make sense of their teams and usually fail. I'm Pat, joined as always by Brendan.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. And we're welcoming back lifelong and diehard Knicks fan, our friend of the show, Chad.
Hey guys, thanks for having me back. Appreciate it.
The fact that Chad is back means the Knicks are advancing in the playoffs. Things are going well. Life is good for Knicks Nation. So we're happy to have you back, man.
Happy to be here.
Before we get into it, I just want to remind everyone, if you guys are not following us, definitely do so on Instagram at the UQ Podcast, and you can catch full episodes on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And before we get started fully, just want to announce our official sponsor now, Dr. Arnie Oliveira and the Empowerment Counseling Center. We call this show fan therapy a lot because, being a sports fan can feel like you're on a roller coaster emotionally. But real therapy can truly change lives, and asking for help is a strength, not a weakness. So for over a decade, Dr. Arnie has been helping individuals, couples, and families work through life's biggest challenges and create lasting positive change. So if you or someone you know needs help, please reach out for your free consultation with Dr. Arnie at 407-775-2949. Real therapy for real life, fan therapy for everything else. And today, as Knicks fans, we have something very real to be emotional about. The Knicks are in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yep.
They beat the Hawks, obviously, in 6 games, and they come back. They take care of the Sixers in 4 straight, and now it's the Cleveland Cavaliers standing in their way. And before we get into that series and breaking it down, I want to get Chad here because I feel like you're a good barometer, Chad, for Knicks fans in general, and taking the temperature of that. So, how are you feeling right now with the long layoff, obviously coming off the sweep of the Sixers? Where is your mindset at as we are on the eve of the Eastern Conference Finals?
So with the amount of time we've had off, we literally could have gone to Cancun, said hi to everybody, and came back. I went from this high right after that sweep that Brendan called all the way to this like weird apprehension and uneasiness, like that little anxiety, because like we've talked about it, the Knicks are coming in fresh. They had a couple of injury concerns, and that rest and that time is a benefit. But with too much rest, when your biggest strength has been your chemistry, not going to lie, that brings in a little bit of anxiety and worry. So I'm just hoping that Mike Brown's mini camp has continued to develop the chemistry and offensive spark that they were able to unlock in that last series. The Cavs are coming in hopefully fatigued, but some might say sharpened. They may be coming in a little bit numb and just ready to fight. So there's some real tension there. So I'm excited. I know we've got it, but I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk from a tired team.
Now, Brendan, as the independent basketball viewer, how are you feeling about the Knicks in general? Obviously, coming off that sweep, like we talked about, are you still, I know like we talked about finals or bust, and you were kind of like, I don't know. And then the last series, you started coming around like, this is the opportunity. You could see them going to the finals. Are you still right there?
Still there. Again, when you go back to the first round, I'm not sure how things are going to shake out. I think obviously the Celtics essentially fallen apart a little bit. Injuries bit them too, but it opened up nicely for the Knicks. And, I as the independent, like I'm okay with having Chad back now. Like my concern is going to be, I know we're going to have Chad back again for the finals because I have my thoughts there. And then you might see more the net hate come out. I don't want you to have too much success. Just like the right level of heartbreak as a Nets fan will help me a lot. Look, we kind of got screwed a little bit in the lotto, right? With like the Nets falling to 6th.
I'm sorry
in the
about that,
lottery.
buddy.
I think the only thing that will make me feel better is a little Nick heartbreak in the finals. So I won't get too far ahead of myself. But as an independent observer here, I would say, again, I think Nick fans have every right to feel very confident and surround whoever they need to in the streets of New York to celebrate, because I think this sets up really nice. And I understand what you're saying, Chad, in terms of chemistry. I just think there is still something to the energy of playing in the Garden, especially as as you advance. And then I think at the same time, It is still the Cavs. I've watched Harden up close as a Nets fan, saw what it looked like, maybe going back a few years where theoretically a little bit more of a, we'll say, a dominant player than he is today. Obviously, he could still shoot. I get that. But to me, I struggle to see where the Knicks would have trouble in this series against the Cavs. I can't find it right now.
We know the Cavs finished 52-30. They were the 4 seed. They have a 7-game series against Toronto that's back and forth, and then they come back and they do it again against the Pistons. When they were down 2-0, I was like, all right, now, like, they are who they are. They're going to fold. But definitely to my surprise, they came back in that series. Yeah, so you have the contrast here with like Chad said, the rest of the team, and then you got a team that's really been through the wars here. And so how is that going to play out? And we kind of talked about it offline, like who would you rather play? And honestly, I said the Pistons because I felt like the Cavs have more ways to beat you. They have more guys that can take over games. So that is a little bit scary to me. And the crazy thing is we didn't really see that Piston like defense take over, right? In that series, that physicality that we thought we were going to see. But let's get into previewing this series. So the Knicks, I know in the regular season, so they took 2 out of the 3 meetings. And obviously now with the home court advantage, looking at the Cavs, they've been an inconsistent road team this season and in the playoffs here. Do you look at the Knicks' depth here versus the kind of the offensive star power of the Cavs as being something that's going to be critical to watch in this series? Do you look at like kind of an advantage for the Knicks in that regard, having such a deep bench?
No, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. When it comes to the Cavs, their resilience has surprised me, and we've seen it for 2 series in a row. But they live and die on the back of Donovan Mitchell. You'd get a couple of sparks in a game from Mobley, and again, we'll talk about that later probably, but if he ends up sparking, that's going to end up being more of a problem for the Knicks and a better support for the Cavs. But they have Donovan Mitchell. They have not proven to be as deep as they can be. Merrill hasn't shown up for those catch and shoots like off the bench. So I honestly think that the depth of the Knicks is going to be what takes us over the finish line. And when I say that, when you look at the Knicks last year, for example, the Knicks were just a tough team that knew how to limp across the finish line. I feel like this is a much more cohesive, well-oiled engine. They have a chemistry, not just with their starting 5, but going all the way up to guy number 9. And they all know how to play off of each other and read each other. So when we're talking about this chemistry, it's just really deeply woven. And Donovan Mitchell's strength is reading a defense and then figuring out a way to break it down. You've seen it in the last 2 series. It takes him a couple of games, but once he gets going, he's able to dismantle him. The issue with the defense that the Knicks are going to be able to show him is they'll be able to throw him so many different bodies and give him so many different looks. I don't think he's going to get the opportunity to break through.
So no primary defender. You'll see it more by committee in a sense.
I think so. I think obviously you are going to see OG and Bridges switch off. And I think in the series with TJ McCollum rather, in the Hawks, you saw Hart step off as well. So you have a couple of guys that are just going to they're already in the starting lineup that they'll be able to throw to them. And then they have people off the bench that will be able to defend as well. So their biggest strength is going to be the 3-point shot. And it hasn't helped them a lot. But with our wing defense, I do think that we'll be able to shut them down on the perimeter.
I think something that the Knicks will definitely have to watch out for when they're on defense is that foul baiting that Harden loves to do, especially from beyond the arc there, where he gets the guy leaning into you. So that's, man. Yeah, that's going to be something the Knicks are going to obviously have to be aware of.
That's an interesting point. Can I ask you a question now? Like, let's say two basketball fans talking to you. Do you feel like the flop has gotten a bit much in the playoffs? And if you had to point to one person who originated really like this NBA flop, who would you point to, and why is it LeBron? No? Okay.
Here we go.
But all joking aside, Donovan Mitchell, right? Like, much appreciation for him, his game, but more importantly, he is a Mets fan. Yeah, I think that's a sign. I think he's like indicating he wants to play with Brooklyn next year. But
I mean, I think he's already expressed that he would love to play in the Garden. He said it a couple of years back when he was in Utah, and he's one guy. I'm like not even addressing the Mets fandom, but He's the one guy that
Took 2 out of 3 from the Yankees, just saying. But in case you missed that, I don't know. Did you see that? We haven't come back from being down in the 8th inning in like 2 years.
oh, man.
So thank you, Yankees.
Well, that hurt.
Broke that streak.
That hurt. I almost went to bed. I was like, "Oh, fine. I don't need to check this game." Uh, but no, like I feel like Donovan Mitchell loves playing in the Garden, and yes, this year the Garden had given him trouble. Obviously, our defense has given him trouble. That we had that amazing Christmas Day game that just had a lot of back and forth, but he wants the lights. He wants the Garden, so I don't think he's going to shrink to the lights at all.
And I won't derail this too much with Donovan Mitchell, but like Utah, Cleveland, Ohio, I mean, that is a painful, 2 stops to have on your resume. I can see it like anywhere but what feels like, could be, not the most vibrant cities in America.
Let me just reset the series here because we know game 1, Tuesday night, Madison Square Garden. It'll be every other night for this series. I think something, for the Knicks, on offense, obviously Jalen Brunson is the guy. And obviously now with Cat, everything running through Cat, but Brunson, I feel like is going to be the biggest matchup problem because I don't feel like the Cavs really have a guy to lock him down. I feel like they're probably going to, try a few different things, Mitchell, Strus, all those guys. And I feel like Brunson might be able to have his way. We really haven't seen him really like take over yet, I feel like, in the playoffs. Chad, do you feel like this is something that he can exploit? Because I just feel like in general, these games, they're going to be very high scoring. I feel like both these teams can score. I just feel like we're going to see a lot more wide open basketball than we would have seen if it was Knicks Pistons.
I think it depends on a couple of different things. So obviously you addressed it with talking about we haven't seen a breakout game from Brunson. He's been extremely consistent. He's been his points and he's still been the glue. And in the fourth quarters, when the starters actually had to play, it's a little flex. He's been able to step up and do what he needed to do. But this has become a very Cat-centric offense. And I think that there is, and while he's been doing well and excelling at playing off of the ball, there is still a learning curve that he has to adjust to when playing off the ball. And I am thinking, and you saw the sparks of it later in the last series, you're going to start seeing it come out. So I think you'll have a couple of breakout performances from Brunson. I don't think that we're going to have the blowouts like we've seen in the last 2 series, but because of that, I think you're going to get to see fourth quarter Brunson like you haven't had to see him this postseason. And I think that's really where he kills you. He steps up in the fourth quarter. He wants the ball in his hands. That ISO ball, I think he's willing to kind of take the ball at the key and kind of just take on any defender. And like you said, I don't think there's many people that are going to be able to defend him. I think they're going to throw a couple people at him. I don't think it's going to help.
We'll obviously get into our predictions later, but yeah, listen, obviously I was way off with the 7 games against the Sixers.
Man,
I was just a little off there, but I mean, pleasantly surprised. I'm happy to be wrong in that scenario, but I feel like these games are going to be more one down the wire, fourth quarter. Who's gonna be able to step up and make these big shots? Brendan, is that kind of how you maybe? I know you're going to predict the sweep, and we'll get into our predictions, but do you see this obviously being a more contested series than what the Knicks have had, obviously in the last series and then the last few games of the Hawks series?
I think the one thing I could appreciate, going back to your psychology comment in the beginning, is just the psychology of just listening to fans of team when you're not the one invested in that team. So I appreciate it. And much like your 7-game prediction, from a fan point of view, it worked out really well, right? You didn't have to sweat out that series, right? 7 straight, averaging average victories like by 20, 25, 26 points. We're somewhere there. Again, maybe that's a bit excessive. Obviously, somebody like Harden heats up, but to me, I still think the well-rounded team that the Knicks are. I hate to make this analogy, maybe Chad appreciate it, but 96 Yankees, to me, I know this is taking, a real step back here in time, but when you look at the 96 Yankees, to me, the one thing that again, not a fan of the Yankees, but one thing I could appreciate is how well-rounded the team was altogether, solid top to bottom. And back then they weren't, right? It wasn't, Jeter wasn't Jeter, Bernie wasn't Bernie just yet. They were coming up. So it was like a team full of just solid B players, right? And, I kind of see that up and down, and maybe a little bit better than B for, we're saying for the Knicks perspective. To me, I think they're so solid, you know, through the starting five, as they go into the bench that, a streaky team, a streaky shooter like Harden, if he gets, caught on fire at this point, still, I don't think that is enough to take down the Knicks in any single game. So I think there's a lot of bodies they could throw at them. They don't have to drop off in terms of, their talent, skill on the floor. To me, I think it's you've lucked out as a Knicks team fan base where, again, you got out of that last series early. You got OG healthy. That by far is one of your more important pieces that you want to have healthy. You don't want to limping along, especially with an injury like that, because, it is a pain to recover from. So from my perspective, I still am not seeing, I see it closer than 26 a game, but I'm not seeing it close enough that, as you get deep into the fourth quarter, it turns into like a foul shot type game. To me, that the Knicks will have these games pretty well in hand at that point.
And I do want to just add something. If I was talking about the rest before, but if we come with the same offensive tenacity that we had, there's this stat that I have heard about the postseason that I just love, and I keep on rereading it over and over and over again. But it says that we have gotten our 8 wins, we being the Knicks, by a combined 196 points. And we had our 2 losses with a combined 2 points. So that's plus 194. So, and we're playing the best basketball I've seen the Knicks play in my adult life. And like Brendan said, I don't believe that if this flow continues, and again, it all depends on that mini camp that Mike Brown has been running that has promised to keep that chemistry. I don't know how they do that. I don't know if it's like layup lines and then a trust fall, but whatever they're doing, if they come and it's working, I don't see us being able to be beaten.
Agreed.
The thing that you mentioned the rest. So the thing that does worry me is game one, because you have a team that's sharp, obviously, albeit maybe a little tired. And then the Knicks, obviously, with all this time off. So how is this going to manifest itself, especially in the first half on Tuesday night? Are we going to see a team just kind of feeling their way and going through the motions with the Cavs kind of attacking? But again, it's to your point, Chad, we're going to see right away based on how this mini camp went and, what they did. I'm really curious, especially, in the first half to see. And I'm not going to say I could see the Cavs stealing game one, because I think, like you said, the Knicks are they're just a well-oiled machine right now, the way they've been playing. But the time off, I just wish it wasn't as long as it was. So that is the one concern.
That's what I'm talking about, Chad, right there.
You
don't need that negative energy.
No.
So I would say this: if
I don't want everything
my prediction
to be,
on game one,
rose-colored.
Yeah. My prediction on game one, again, is obviously NBA playoffs way different than regular season. Intensity way different. Back-to-back 7 games up to Detroit, now back to New York. Granted, not terrible traveling in from a distance perspective or timing, but it does throw off the ability to, I think, recover in a way that the Cavs would like. So to me, if they come out flat in that first half, legs a little tired, jumpers a little flat, to me, I say if there was one game the Knicks are going to run them out the building, it's going to be game one. I don't think game one is really that. Once you get into the second half, won't be that competitive.
And we don't know what James and company were doing last night after the game. They got to turn around in less than 48 hours later in the Mecca.
Sometimes when from the jump you're just outmanned, and that's what I think is going to be the realization in game one for the Cavaliers. Obviously, they're going to go out there and continue to try to shoot, but at the end of the day, I don't think you can. I don't think Donovan has the person to partner with in Harden. There's a reason why Harden never truly won anywhere.
Well, I do feel that game one has a lot of Knicks fans having PTSD. Because one thing that we forget is that we haven't been here before. We were here last year. We were supposed to win last year. It was supposed to be a cakewalk. So I don't think the Knicks are going to take anything for granted. The way game one ended last year with that miraculous bounce, and we could talk about the reffing, we can talk about everything else, but at the end of the day, they shouldn't have been in that situation. I do not see the Knicks coming in lackadaisical. I see them hitting hard early. I see them getting, like you said, Brendan, a decisive win tomorrow, because they know what happened last year and they're not taking anything for granted.
Let's talk about something in this series that could decide it. and I feel like it's the rebounding. I don't feel like the Cavs. I know they were towards the bottom of the league or ranked low in that, and especially in the playoffs as well.
I mean,
Could the Knicks dominate the Cavs on the board and still lose the series? I don't think so, because I feel like if Cat and Mitchell do what they do, I don't feel like the Cavs really have anyone to kind of overtake them in that realm. I think that's where the Knicks really have a true advantage is on the boards.
no respect for Jared Allen.
I feel like it's a chess match because, to Brendan's point, I think this all kind of relies on the rim protection that Allen and Mobley usually provide. But with this new, again, cat-centric offense that usually is going to bring a big somewhere out to the key, I just feel like there is going to be that open area that's going to allow our smaller rebounders and Mitch, if we're playing a too big lineup, to be able to crash over the boards. So I think where Allen and where Mobley might succeed normally, this new offense that the Knicks have been running is going to take them away from their bread and butter there. So not only do I think that it'll open up offensive rebounds for us, I think it's going to open up lanes for our guards and our forwards to be able to crash the boards.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I've watched Jared Allen play with the Nets. I know he had a pretty important, game 7 against Detroit. I think he had like 23-7 or something, I don't know, something along those lines. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but he had a solid game. But still, to your point, the things you could do with Cat versus maybe some other bigs. Yeah, again, I struggle. Like, to me, where we were a couple of weeks ago, I know it's easier for me, again, not being a fan, to look ahead, but I think I look forward to, seeing the Knicks match up with one of the two Western Conference final teams. Not that anything should be taken lightly in the playoffs, of course, but if the Knicks show up, they have the determination, they have that sour taste in their mouth from last year, learn from their mistakes. To me, this is another quick series.
Quick series. I like it. Now, one benefit, obviously, as a result of the extended time off is OG getting healthy. I feel like we may have seen him if that series went a little longer against the Sixers, but we'll never know. I think OG and Mikhail in both of those guys, I feel like on the wing, they have kind of favorable matchups. I don't know if the Cavs have guys that can really match up with both of them on the outside. Do you feel like, because I feel like we haven't really seen a game where all these guys, OG, Mikhail, Hart, have really all been like just knocking down their shots together. Do you feel like we need all those guys to be on to be able to win the Eastern Conference and obviously win an NBA title? Or can they kind of get away with, how they've been running the offense and what they've been doing? Because I feel like we've had different guys step up in different games throughout the playoffs.
I don't think we need everybody on full cylinders at all times. And normally, depending on the opponent, I would say like we all need to be playing together. We all need to gel. I just feel like this is a different team, like we talked about it than last year. The conversation now isn't about how tough the Knicks are. They're still tough, but it's more about how versatile they are and how many different ways they can beat you. So I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think any one of us would be surprised because from anybody in their starting lineup giving 20 in a game, or a couple people from their bench being able to give 20 in a game, because again, they can go down that roster and still be able to kind of make up for an area. Now, if multiple players collapse, which I don't see happening to the Knicks right now, then yeah, we'll have an issue. But when somebody is being lackluster in a game, we're so deep right now that we'll be able to pull somebody else out.
Do you feel like home court is going to decide this series? How big do you think, how important do you think home court is in this series?
I mean, it's, again, I mean, playoff basketball, playoff hockey, playoff football, right? I mean,
Is it overrated?
No, I don't think so. I think there's something to the energy that you feed off of. And I know we talked about it, I think, going into the first round with the Hawks. I mean, to me, there's something about, there's always been that like aura around the Madison Square Garden side of it. Playoff time, right? The energy is just different. And, to me, I think, again, right, like, I know it's easy for me to look ahead, but I think for the finals, it becomes a factor. I mean, best case, or I guess I think to me, best case scenario for the Cavs in this is like a gentleman's sweep, right? So if that's the case, I mean, from that perspective, I'm not necessarily seeing home court as, what's going to drive it. Maybe a little bit of game one, right to your that point, that energy, they're going to be flying up and down the floor. They're the ones that are going to have fresh legs. And at the end of the day, if you're defending hard, especially in this first game, the first quarter, first half, letting them know you're going to be there, right? Like every minute, To me, I think that's going to wear on the Cavs pretty quickly, considering the who series that they just came off of. So, again, from my perspective, I'm not necessarily worried about home court right now. I think your next round is where home court is going to be everything for you.
Fair enough. Yeah. So someone we really haven't touched on yet, and I feel like is a guy that the Knicks really need to pay attention to. We've talked about Harden, we've talked about Donovan Mitchell. Evan Mobley, I feel like he could be a huge X factor for the Cavs. Just with his improved, shooting and scoring ability, I feel like I've seen him throughout this playoff season kind of really swing the pendulum in games in the Cavs' favor. Chad, what would you like to see defensively for the Knicks on Mobley throughout this series?
Honestly, he's giving me the same worry that he's given you, because I feel like so many people, either sleep on him or they isolate him to just an amazing defensive player, which he absolutely is. Again, last season's reigning a defensive player of the year before Wemby just got it. But when it comes to his offensive prowess, which is growing and it seems to be rather consistent through these playoffs, more so out of necessity because James Harden just hasn't stepped up. He's become their second option, not their third option. And defensively, again, I'm going to go to my guy, my X factor for the last two series. That's also my X factor for the third. I think
Oh,
I think you're going to see him defending a lot, trying to push off to the wing. And I just feel like he's got it. He's ready for the assignment. And every now and then, depending on what lineup we're running, I think Robinson in the paint.
I like it. Brendan, who do you see as an X factor in this series? Maybe someone we haven't really mentioned yet. It could be on the Knicks or the Cavs.
Well, to me, I feel like an X factor. I know I'm not helping this. I feel like the X factor is, probably in something that's a little bit closer, more competitive. But I think it just like showing up in toughness, kind of just being that guy for the series, right? Like, not necessarily if attitude and that drive and perseverance is going to be parts of that, X factor in a series. To me, it's Jalen's job to make sure everybody's mind is right. He's got the team. He gets them in the flow quickly, especially early, right? Where you're worried about how rusty that team is, how rusty are. They will be, I should say, in terms of shooting, right? Just getting that flow going. To me, I think what New Yorkers appreciate is that grit. To me, I could see that part being the important piece that carries the Knicks in this series. And again, right, everybody's, I think, is going to have their moments. I think Cat's going to be solid. OG is going to be solid. Mikhail maybe show up kind of like, get a couple of those threes going. But to me, I think this is a series tailor-made for who Jalen Brunson is. And I think what New York loves about him and what New York loves to support in terms of their teams as they advance, towards a championship.
I think that's a great point. And you talk about grit. And for argument's sake, I agree with you, Chad. I think OG again, we're not being redundant here. It's just the truth. Like, he needs to be that two-way guy. He needs to bring it, game in and game out. But for my X factor, I'm gonna say Josh Hart, because you talk about grit. Like, I feel like when the Knicks are humming and rolling, he brings that energy to the floor, that rebounding. And if he can start hitting his threes, which he's streaky sometimes with that. But man, he starts hitting those threes like that. Just those three things combined: the energy, the rebounding, and then if he can, be accurate from beyond the arc, I feel like that's going to be a huge, huge thing for the Knicks, because we've seen some flashes from Hart, I think, this postseason, but kind of, not maybe fully like we're used to. And we haven't needed it, to be quite honest. So, but I think we're going to need some big time Hart moments in this series. That's just my opinion.
Agree.
No, it's okay. I look, I can see the anxiety in your face, like you're wearing it, and it's okay. Like I think this is what it's about in the end. I'm just over here, got the baby Mets going in the background. Like, life is good. I'm not stressed at this point.
See, the great thing about this podcast is we are the fan. We are the average fan. We're the guy that has cheered for his team since he was a kid. So with that said, we all have our fears, in the back of our mind. We all think about maybe what could go wrong while keeping a positive mindset. So I think I'll start off for me. What scares you most about the series is probably Donovan Mitchell just going nuts, getting hot, going off and the Knicks not having an answer, although I really don't see that happening. But we've seen Mitchell kind of take over games before. So that is something that might keep me up a little bit going into this series. But I mean, the way the Knicks have handled, they handled the Hawks, obviously offensively, and then handled Tyrese Maxey with the Sixers. Like he was a non-factor in most of those games. Really, you almost forgot he was on the court in some of those games. Like the Knicks did a great job neutralizing him. So
I forgot the
I'll say,
Sixers were in the playoffs.
oh man, did you see did you see what Paul Pierce said about the Knicks? I feel like it was like
No.
right after that Sixers series. I think well, he's on one of the post game shows and they asked him like, "Can you see the Knicks, you know, winning a title, winning a chip?" And he's like, "Oh, they'll do something to screw it up or something along those lines."
Sounds like Paul Pierce.
That's on brand for him, definitely, to say something like that.
Yeah. To me, realistically, it's probably injury, right?
Mm.
Obviously we've seen it. I think the last couple of years where somebody goes down and don't want that, right? Like I get
Chad's
that,
like,
but
Don't you say that. Don't put it out there. Don't put it out into the world.
I just meant somebody to Cavs team, of course.
Yeah.
But like I said, I just sometimes just finally have to show up, right? And I think the Knicks are ready to do that. I think, well, not ready. They've been doing that this postseason, right? After they fell behind to the Hawks, it hasn't been the same, right? They've been a much different team in a lot of ways. The way they're showing up to each game, and I see it continuing. Obviously, right? Look at Spurs, Thunder, a little bit. That's the different story. And, obviously that team concept is really going to be put to the test for the Knicks. Yeah, like I said, I think if you're a Knicks fan, you have to be pretty damn happy at this point. It's set up very well for you. You got a beat up Sixers team off a long series. Now you're getting the Cavs off of 2 long series. Like to me, this couldn't have broken any better for a Knicks fan on their way to the NBA Finals.
I did say if they don't get to the finals, it is a failure. With that said, I just want to pose this question and then we'll get into our predictions. Ad, could you make an argument that this is the best Knicks team ever? Do they have to win a chip for that to be true? Maybe
No.
a better way to phrase that.
I don't see them having to win a chip for that to be true in the modern era.
Mm.
I think, when we're talking about it, I think this is an extremely versatile team, an extremely deep team. However, the 90s gets muddled because of a very specific dominance. And we had some amazing teams down that stretch, but we were going against the dynasty of the Chicago Bulls, the 2 years of Hakeem.
Did Jordan dunk on somebody in that? I can't remember.
Oh, that hurts. All right. I still have nightmares. It's on repeat.
Charles Smith.
But I look at it as this is the way this Knicks team is playing is unprecedented for the Knicks. They are just playing on all cylinders. They're playing the best basketball I've seen this team play, again, in my adult life. We've had more spectacular players. We've had the people that should have done it but didn't, i.e. Anthony and Stoudemire. We've seen all these combinations. This is the most cohesive and maybe the most deep Knicks team that I have seen. So I'll give it that. I don't know if I'm willing to say that it's the best team. I will say that to be the best team, they will have to win a chip. I need to see them against the Spurs or OKC, who are also playing some amazing basketball down the stretch. I need them to see them overcome adversity because we haven't been tested yet. And I'm not going to lie, when we beat the Cavs, it's still not going to be us truly being tested. The Cavs have not been playing the best basketball. They have not been playing Cavs basketball, and we look forward to exploiting a team that is tired that also hasn't been playing their best basketball. We can say the same thing about the Sixers. We can say the same thing about the Hawks. So with that being said, we're playing our best basketball against people that haven't been playing their best.
All the more reason they got to seize the opportunity here.
100%.
You can't look back or look ahead and next year be like, oh, we'll get right back here. No problem. You just don't know. We know, we've seen our teams, all of us, when you're like, oh, they'll be back. And so sometimes it just doesn't happen for a long time. So
Agreed.
I think they probably are the most talented Knicks team that we've ever seen. But I'll say that they need to win a chip for us to say they are the best Knicks team ever. That's That's just how I see it. Brendan.
Yeah, I couldn't. I would say in my lifetime, maybe the second best group. Right, it's hard to put them past the '94 Knicks and that team. What they built. Obviously, again, era being a little bit different, and how teams, for the most part, stuck together through a good run, built that camaraderie, built that the right teamwork, and again, right. Obviously, early to mid '90s basketball way different than what we see today, but still. Um, that was a great series with the Rockets, and Hakeem is Hakeem, right? Like, to me, still always a big fan of Hakeem, but yeah, I'd say got to win it all to compete and try to overthrow at least the '70s Knicks. But my lifetime, that early to mid '90s Knicks team is really the best all around Knicks team I've seen.
Wait, the '70s team wasn't your lifetime, pal?
Damn. Damn.
I love you,
Technically,
buddy.
no, I just missed it. I
kidding.
didn't,
I'm kidding.
he's just been
Man.
waiting all night for that chat. Just wanted to,
It's a
little
great
Chad.
debate. I think something that gets overlooked is Mike Brown, because I wasn't a fan of them firing Tibbs. I feel like Tibbs and obviously Leon Rose, they kind of got the Knicks out of basketball purgatory and really kind of rebuilt this team. And Tibbs had him on the brink, especially last year, and they just couldn't get over the hump. So I felt like he was owed the opportunity to try to do it, because he took him this far. But I gotta say, like, Mike Brown, he's been impressive with his ability to adjust, and really get the most out of the entire team and use the bench and do all that. So yeah, I've been pleasantly surprised with Mike Brown. And obviously, to this point, it has proven to be the right move. Now, this is the big test right here. This is the line. Like, can he get them over this point? Because they haven't been able to do it. So yeah.
Can I throw a scenario out to you? Say, right, Knicks advance, make to the finals, whoever they play, they come up just short, right? Do you bring LeBron in? Are you that desperate that you would bring LeBron in?
I wouldn't, Chad.
I don't want him in my town. No, I'm good.
Because then it's like, if for some reason he delivers a chip for you, then it's like, you got to worship this guy's, kiss his feet forever. Like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
It'd be such a weird feeling, right?
Well, you got Coach Brown, right, like that pairing, get them back together. I mean, it's something. It's something to think about. I'm just putting it out there.
This is such a cohesive unit. I can't imagine injecting someone like a LeBron into the locker room like that. He's great. Listen, he's great. There's no debating that. Even you would agree, Brendan, right?
What was the question? I think it's somewhere, right?
An all-time great.
I haven't thought about top 10 all time, but I'm sure he cracks the top 10. But it's just a scenario. Just a thought in my head. Would you take LeBron as a Knick, and right? Just say game one of the season, they win. He doesn't get the game ball. What happens at that point?
How about LeBron and Bronny coming to the BK to resurrect your franchise, pal? What about that?
I'm good. Same thing. I don't want him. Him and his son can stay out west wherever they are.
You wouldn't be pumped at all?
I would not be pumped. I would be a little bit sick to my stomach.
But just to clarify, I just don't want, and I don't think Knicks fans want a chip like that. I don't want them to get that guy. There's a difference between getting a missing piece and then trying to purchase a championship.
Wow.
Well said.
Yeah,
yes.
I feel Kevin Durant.
Look, so you know how you feel about LeBron? I have similar feelings about Kevin Durant. There's a level of immaturity and a mercenary aspect that I see in him as well. And that's not the piece that I would add to this puzzle, because it looks like you're going out on a limb just to get a ring. And I know it's all about winning a championship, but I think it's about the way you win that championship as well.
All right, guys.
Sorry to sidetrack you with that.
It's the eve of the Eastern Conference Finals, the Knicks and the Cavs, Game 1, Tuesday night, Madison Square Garden. It's time for predictions. And we're going to start with our resident, lifelong, diehard Knicks fan and friend of the show, Chad. Chad, what is your prediction for this Eastern Conference Final?
The prediction, not just for me, the prediction in this household, so Chelsea and I both believe that the series is going to be done in 5 games with the Knicks on top 4-1.
4-1. I like it. The independent basketball viewer.
Well, at some point, in fairness to the hard work that you both put in with playoff basketball here, I feel like, Magic City has to get on board for a sponsorship here.
It's the first reference hit way under.
Way under. That was good this show. I was like, I can't just keep going back to Magic City.
They're 6-0 since the wing, so we know.
7, technically, right? No, 6? 6 or 7.
Yeah, because
No, you're right.
They went the first after the first win in Atlanta.
Yeah, true. So I'm sticking with it. I think this is a sweep again. I think the Knicks come out game 1. Just put it to the Cavs in game 1. Maybe again, of course, game 2 is going to be closer. I see them blow out in game 1, but I think the Knicks are too well rounded, too good. And I think after again going back to last year, that experience does matter. Learn from that experience and don't take any chances, right? Show up, play hard. And, again, I think the energy of the Garden in the first 2 games is, going to help that as well. We're going to see some crazy stuff out in the streets, outside the Garden, of course, but I'm going with the sweep again.
Wow. I expect nothing less from you, my friend. Okay. My prediction is going to be Knicks in 6. I think the Cavs do get a couple games. I think this is going to be, kind of a high scoring series that are going to come down to the fourth quarter. I feel like most of these games, we're not going to see the blowouts we saw in the last series plus for the Knicks. But I think a few things. Home court is going to be huge. The Knicks' depth, their late game defense, and Jalen Brunson doing his thing also late game. And I feel like that's what's going to put the Knicks over the top. I feel like, Mitchell, he's going to get his. Harden's going to get his. They're going to have some hot streaks where it looks like they're taking over, and then the Knicks are going to put the hammer down. So I'm going Knicks in 6. They win this 4-2. Yes.
I say one thing about that prediction. If the Cavs manage to win 2 games, they will match their total wins against the Knicks in their playoff history of that matchup. So this is their 5th matchup.
Wow. Brendan, bring in the stats.
Swept twice.
Yeah. 3 years
one
ago.
win. And it's an alternating. I'm just saying, I look for some of this stuff. It's alternating. So their last series, the last time they met in 23, I think they got 1 win, the Cavs. So, it just lines up for a sweep. I'm just saying.
Hey, from your lips to God's ears. Okay. Your lips to God's ears. So this has been great, guys. Chad, we know we're going to talk to you again. We know
I will be back
for the
finals preview.
NBA finals. Like, we know it's going to happen.
I'll be back.
That's probably a good way to put that finals.
Man, guys, I want to thank everyone for joining us on the Unqualified podcast. Follow us on Instagram at the UQ podcast, and you can catch full episodes on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify.
And don't forget one last final shout out to our one and only sponsor at the moment, the great Dr. Arnie Oliveira. But in all seriousness, I'm a huge fan and advocate of mental health and therapy. Unfortunately, I've experienced my share of tragedy in life. And, quite honestly, without support and help from that community, I don't think my life would look or resemble anything what it does today. And, quite frankly, I think from a perspective of just being happier, living a life, raising my daughter, I really am thankful for all those who helped me when I was going through it in life. Big shout out to Arnie. Love him. And, I'm glad we can help him.
Absolutely. Well said, my friend. We'll catch you guys next time, hopefully previewing the NBA finals. I'm Pat. That's Brendan. Chad. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. We'll talk to you next time.
See you soon.